Hi, welcome everyone. I'm here to call order of the meeting of the directors of the USA Niagara Development Corporation for Thursday, March 26, 2015. As noted on the agenda, posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items of the following agenda. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourselves from any discussion or vote with regard to such items or items. Nobody? Thank you. I will now ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the November 24th, 2014 directors meeting.
So moved.
Michael Williamson. Just so I can hear. Just want to make sure. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions with regard to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Smith. Second?
Second.
Monica. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Chris Shefflin will present the remainder of the action items on the agenda. The first item is the corporation's annual operating budget and annual capital expenses authorization for fiscal year 2015-2016. Please begin, Chris.
Thanks, Francine. Good afternoon, everybody. For your review and approval of the proposed annual operating budget and annual capital expense authorization for USA Niagara Development Corporation for fiscal year 2015-16. That is April 1 to March 31st. The fiscal year 15-16 operating budget proposes a total of $599,446 in personnel services, that's salaries and benefits for 5 employees, and a total of $110,200. Oh, sure, yep. And a total of $110,282 in non-personnel services, primarily office occupancy and other administrative expenses. The total budget for all personal and non-personal is $709,728, which represents an increase of 7.2% over projected fiscal year 14-15 expenses, mostly as a result of increases in personal service costs. And I would say that, just for clarification, that 7.2%, about 4 to 4.5% represent wage increases, cost of living and merit increases for staff, and about 2.5% represent tuition reimbursement and internship costs. Consistent with previous year's operating budgets, the fiscal year 15-16 operating budget will be advanced with Empire State Development corporate funds with the expectation of reimbursement at a later date. The corporation's fiscal year 2015-16 annual capital expense authorization is $15,630,000. This includes construction costs of $12,130,000, design and other soft costs of $1.9 million, legal costs of $100,000, and property and management and maintenance costs of $1.5 million. It is anticipated that the proposed funding will cover capital costs associated with investments in the $34.9 million Hyatt Place Hotel at 310 Rainbow Boulevard and the $27 million Doubletree project at 401 Buffalo Avenue, to name a few. Funding for the corporation's annual capital expense authorization is from USA Niagara and City Memorandum of Understanding funds made available to the corporation under the 2009 and 2014 agreements with the City of Niagara Falls in support of the Conference Center and Old Fall Street economic development projects located within the corporation's development district. It's important to note that the individual capital project expenses, each capital project, will be approved by the directors under separate actions, and also that no USA Niagara corporate funds are included in the annual capital expense authorization. Based on the foregoing, the directors are requested to ratify and approve the corporation's proposed fiscal year 15-16 annual operating budget in the amount of $709,728 and the annual capital expense authorization in the amount of $15,630,000, again subject to individual project approvals, and to authorize the corporation to undertake tasks and incur expenditures consistent with advancing the scope of work contemplated in the proposed operating budget.
Any questions, comments from the directors on the budget?
Just one short question. The Because our fiscal year budget is advanced from Empire State and reimbursement at a later date, when is that later date, like last year? When do we reimburse them?
Well, the parent corp, the intercompany balance is about $19.8 million over the 11, 12 years of the corporation. So, that becomes a broader issue for,
Not
yeah.
May 15th, right?
No.
Whenever it happens, right,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
Any comments from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Smith? Second?
Second.
Mr. Williamson? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now I will ask Chris to present an item relating to the Niagara Falls Convention and Conference Facility and Old Fall Street 2015 operating and capital budgets for your consideration. When you're ready, Chris. Please.
Thank you very much. Attached for your review and approval are the proposed operating and capital budget requests for the Conference and Event Center Niagara Falls and Old Fall Street for 2015. Per the 2014 Memorandum of Understanding between USA Niagara and the City of Niagara Falls, the City has provided and will continue to provide up to $1.5 million annually towards the combined annual operating and capital budgets for both the Conference Center and Old Fall Street through 2018. The proposed calendar year 2015 operating budget for the Conference Center is $326,654. The operating budget for Old Fall Street is $686,424. The total combined operating budgets for the Conference Center and Old Fall Street is $1,013,078 with incentive fees factored in. The proposed calendar year 15 capital budget is $499,812. This amount includes a total of $360,612 in proposed funding for the Conference Center and a total of $139,200 in funding for Old Fall Street. Global Spectrum will make the proposed capital budget purchases on behalf of the corporation through state contracts where possible, and then through competitive bids and comparable pricing where state contracts are not available. The combined operating and capital budgets with incentive fees total $1,512,890. As the proposed budget may exceed the aforementioned $1.5 million allocation, USA Niagara will fund the remaining $12,890 from excess funds remaining from prior years' MOU allocations if necessary. The directors have approved the operating and capital budgets and the Conference Center and Old Fall Street budgets in March of each year, as the corporation's fiscal year is from April 1 to March 31st. However, the Conference Center's fiscal year is actually concurrent with the calendar year, which is January 1st to December 31st, which in the past has led to delays in first quarter funding for both Old Fall Street and the Conference Center. So to address that gap, we're proposing today that, let me just, one more point, that to address the gap, USA Niagara has advanced Global Spectrum $178,448 in order to fund first quarter operations for this year 2015. But we propose that the directors approve at this time that for Conference Center and Old Fall Street funding for the first quarter of 2016 be approved in the amount not to exceed $250,000, and that would, in doing that this year, would allow us to not to have any cash flow issues in the first quarter of 2016. The Conference Center and Old Fall Street budgets for 16 will still remain subject to approval by these directors before the start of the corporation's fiscal year. It's a Type 2 action from an environmental perspective, no further review required there. Based on the foregoing, the directors are requested to approve USA Niagara's proposed calendar year 2015 Conference Center and Old Fall Street operating and capital budgets in the amount not to exceed $1,512,890, and to approve Conference Center and Old Fall Street funding for the first quarter of 2016 in the amount not to exceed $250,000, and to allow us to disperse funds in accordance with the operating and capital budgets attached to these materials.
Any questions or comments from the directors? Any comments from the public? Oh, I'm sorry. No, please. Yes, Mr. Smith?
I'm slow.
No, I'm talking too fast.
I understand that the moratorium of understanding with the city 2014.
Yeah.
Does that require or not require a council vote to transfer those funds?
Council voted on it in last year, 14. We have an executed agreement with the city. It's in effect through 2018, so no future votes from the city council will occur. The only vote will lie with this board of directors in order for us to enable to advance and expend the funds.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good to hear. Any comments from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Mr. Williams, second. Monica? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That concludes that part of the business. But now I'll ask Matthew Hollander, the Regional Vice President of Global Spectrum, and Jason Murgia, General Manager of Conference Center Niagara Falls and Old Fall Street, to begin their presentation on Global Spectrum for the Director's information. Please note, no vote is required for this action. Gentlemen?
Thank you. Really appreciate this opportunity. I'm Matt Hollander. I'm the Regional Vice President with Global Spectrum. I've been supporting the account here in Niagara Falls for several years, actually. Took over for my predecessor, Barry Strafacci. I'm not sure if any of you had worked with him. Really wanted to come here. I was in town to visit the team here and wanted to take the opportunity, since you were assembled, to come in and say hello and thank you on behalf of Global Spectrum. This has been a tremendously wonderful relationship for us. We really enjoyed the relationship that we share with USA Niagara and the city of Niagara Falls. And personally, the Conference Center and Old Fall Street are one of my favorite accounts. It's one of my favorite places to be, even on a snowy day. Sorry I couldn't bring warm weather from Miami Beach for you. But a couple things. Global Spectrum, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but we operate about 120 venues around the world. Mostly in North America, and this is one account that we're particularly proud of. And what I'm very proud of with regard to our relationship here in Niagara Falls is that now running the organization here is somebody who is from Niagara Falls, who's also kind of grown through the organization, coming in as our Director of Events, being promoted last year to the position of Assistant General Manager, and now about 2 months ago now,
Yes.
Jason was promoted to the position of General Manager. So he's the person, he's going to share with you some information specific to the operations. My role is to make sure that Jason and his team have all the corporate resources and support that they need to be successful. So, thank you. And I'll answer any questions if you like.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Again, I'm the new Jason Murgia, the newly appointed General Manager of the Conference Center. For 10 years now, we've provided exemplary customer service and customer experience at the Conference Center. In 2014, our attendance grew by 40%. Last year, we had roughly 77,000 people walk through our doors. Also in 2014 of September, we had our second best gross revenue month in over 5 years. That number was roughly over $422,000. Also at the Conference Center, we have created our first homegrown consumer show. That's the Greater Niagara Fishing Outdoor Expo. We recently were honored to actually receive an award for that show for our conservation efforts that we exhibit at the show. The first year when we did it in 2014, we had roughly 3,500 people walk through our door. This year we had over 7,900 people walk through our doors for this consumer show that we actually produce ourselves. We've gained an exemplary regional reputation, and we've had great success in luring several well-established, high-profile events from other areas in Niagara and Erie County to come over and to switch to the Conference Center. And that really says something about our staff and our commitment and consistency to customer service. Also in 2014, we saw our wedding revenue, which was roughly $250,000 alone, grow by 42% over the prior year. There are great synergies between the Conference Center and Old Fall Street. It is an excellent resource and our selling tool and our commitment to get other conventions to come to Niagara Falls. Old Fall Street is starting to establish itself really as the community gathering place, the town square, not only for tourists, but for locals and our regional guests. It's really became a dynamic three-block destination that offers high-level quality programming, not only from a special event perspective, but from a serious perspective as well. We've expanded our programming in 2014 and in 2015. We've seen growth, tremendous growth in our attendance numbers, not only in our special event programming, but our serious programming. For example, our 9-week movie series that is on the middle block every Thursday, we regularly see no less than 300 local families participate in our movies. Our 11-week concert series that's held every Friday night, again, no less than 300 concert goers every Friday night. This summer, we're going to take a new approach to our Saturdays. We're going to be offering free family fun throughout the whole day, offering continuous programming from early morning to afternoon. Another event that I wanted to also talk about that we implemented in 2013 was our New Year's Eve Kids Club celebration on New Year's Eve. The first year that we did it, we had roughly 75 local families participate with us. Last year, we had over 400 local families celebrate New Year's Eve with us. So we've seen some really great success stories on Old Fall Street. Some of these successes have allowed Old Fall Street really to be the place to be. And we've actually seen regional events partaking on Old Fall Street. One event in particular is the Tour de Cure. That event raises, it benefits the American Diabetes Association. That event is usually held in Buffalo. I'm proud to say this year that this event will be held on Old Fall Street in June. And we anticipate over 1,500 cyclists downtown Niagara Falls. That's something really that we're really proud about as well. In terms of capital purchases and expenditures, some highlights. One thing when it comes to the building, we've been consistently updating and enhancing the customer service. And we've always stayed ahead of the curve and taking that fresh, dynamic approach to make sure our facility is very modern. Some of the things that we have done, we've just finished, in 2014, we wrapped up our painting, we've continued our painting program in 2014, and we'll continue it in 2015 as well. Also in 2015, we're going to update all our technology in our breakout rooms. That's something that's very key to going after the corporate business segment in our large conventions. In addition to that, we're updating our HVAC systems, making sure they're more energy efficient, and that's going to be a multi-year process, but we're going to get that started this year. Also in 2014, we replaced over 26,000 square foot of carpet, specifically our ballroom, the cataract room, all our public spaces, and our offices. As well, in 2015, we're going to replace roughly 11,700 square feet of carpet in all our breakout rooms as well. In conclusion, on behalf of Global Spectrum, the staff at the Conference and Event Center, we truly appreciate your continuous support. And working directly with USA Niagara has been an honor, and we really appreciate their support. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Hollander or for Mr. Merja?
A 40% uptick in 1 year is incredible. What do you attribute that to? I said 40% uptick in 1 year is incredible.
The attendance?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be very candid and honest. Our sales team, under the leadership of Melissa Gerhardt, have done a really wonderful job of marketing our building. And one of the beautiful resources I said earlier is we have the ability to use Old Fall Street as a selling tool. Not only do we have Niagara Falls, but we actually have the resource of utilizing Old Fall Street to separate ourselves from other venues. So really, our sales team has really gone out of their way to make sure that we get the best the best client, the best fit for our building. In addition to that, a lot of what we're seeing too is repeat business. And that's exactly the relationship that we want to keep and having the rapport with these businesses and conventions.
You know, I've attended a lot of events at the Conference Center. It is a wonderful facility. And it gets high marks from anybody I know that's hosted an event there. And, you know, in the summer, my husband and I do go to Old Fall Street on a regular basis. I really like the programming that you're doing there.
Sure.
And the food quality is actually really good.
Yes.
The food quality is actually very good. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I had mentioned to Chris in a conversation I had with him yesterday, if he would just give us an update on the Robert Moses Parkway South project. The last time we were all together is when we did the groundbreaking, and things have been moving along despite the weather.
So thanks, Francine. I'm going to defer that to Paul Tronelome, our resident Robert Moses Parkway project manager. But before I do that, to close the kind of loop on the conference center, I mean, what Jason and Matt were talking about was kind of the combination of community development, which is a lot what happens on Old Fall Street, and economic development, which is what happens in that building. I mean, 50, 70 jobs get supported out of that facility. We use a tremendous amount of Western New York vendors. I think our local spends about $1 million a year. The growth, I think, Gary, will continue. I won't continue at that clip, but it will continue as we add more hotel rooms, and the marketing and sales team over there are able to go out and pursue larger state and regional conferences and even larger state and regional events. We've been somewhat limited by the quantity of proximate hotel rooms, and we have 400 under construction in the neighborhood today, 400 more behind that. So we've taken the loss when we inherited the old convention center business from about 1.5 per year, 1.5 million to just about 325,000. Only one other facility that we know of in the state kind of gets to a break-even point. That's Javits Center in New York. So I like the prospect of pursuing that as a goal, and it's something we talk about a lot with the team at the conference center. So we hope that'll continue, and we like the fact that we're doing community development as much as we're doing economic development. And so, sorry, Francine, but with
glad you added that.
I've asked Paul to actually prepare a few things on Robert Moses Parkway South.
Just briefly,
Thanks,
Robert Moses Parkway South, as you watch the construction happen out there, it's less being Robert Moses Parkway South, and every day it becomes more Riverway Project, which is what it's
How do you
called.
want me to refer to it now, Paul?
Next
Just
time
tell me
we
going
meet,
forward how
we're going to call it
should
the
we do?
Riverway Project,
Okay,
because
I'll-
there's not going to be a Robert Moses.
That's
And what,
actually good
as
to
you
know.
see the excavation going on over the winter, or since November of last year, you can see that indeed there is a river out there.
Yeah.
Little by little, we're discovering that as we find the edge opened up to full access from the adjoining downtown. And I get to watch it because the mayor often posts pictures on his website. A couple of numbers, we're in the 5th month of an 18-month schedule for its completion. We've moved about 10,000 truckloads of soil. That's about 100,000 cubic yards of soil out of about a 214,000 target. So we're about halfway through the mass excavation. You can see the changes that are happening already. Basically, the last change will be the most dramatic as we watch the remaining berm right in front of the homes on Riverside Drive get slowly removed and moved back. The project's in the first of 3 phases. This is the most obtrusive. This first phase over the winter, we had to close off the road. Obviously, those of you who are going in and out of downtown know you have to use Buffalo Avenue to get back to the Grand Island Bridge. That once we're out of this phase, by the peak tourist season, we'll be able to, that'll all be eliminated. Our key goal is by the tourist season to have the Buffalo Avenue detour eliminated so we can use the existing parkway to get back to the Grand Island Bridge and move into the next phase, which will be in the park. There'll be no major road closures during that second phase. It'll be basically lane shifts and things like that. There'll be a lot of obstruction. We're hoping to have this phase, most of the road work done good by the time the snow flies in November, and then come back in the spring of 2016 to do the mother of all landscape architecture projects. I mean, just a massive amount of new, 10,000 new trees, or 10,000 plantings, not all trees, but several hundred new trees along that, a whole trail system. Really, the park work is going to start happening near the end of this work and coming in the spring. So by June of next year, it's going to be all wrapped up and have a nice new gift for the city of Niagara Falls.
Great. I'd just like to hear these updates. And, I'd asked Chris also if he would just give us an update on Wonderfalls and on the Hammerster project. I mean, these are the things that we're mostly involved with, and we have a lot of investment, and I'd just like to keep us abreast of what's happening.
Yeah, so Hammerster, we are working on amending the agreement. As you'll all recall, we're going to substitute more hotel rooms for what was initially some residential space. That project has gone from 25 to about 35 million. We're going to invest more as a part of that. all of that will require us, you'll remember, I don't know, about 18 months ago, we approved the general project plan as a board. We're going to come back to you probably within 30 days, and I'm sorry we weren't ready in time to roll it into this agenda, but we're going to have to come back to the board and approve a modified general project plan, which will enable him to do the same with the City Council, Niagara Falls City Council, and we expect that the developer will be in construction, by June of this calendar year 15. On Wonderfalls, that $150 million project, we are in early stages. A couple things are happening. The developer is doing his due diligence at the project site. We're doing some phase 1 work. We're doing some subsurface investigation. We do some survey work. We are in the process of negotiating a relatively brief but dense term sheet that will come back to this board, of course, for approval once we're complete, or once we finalize that. We hope to do that by summer. That term sheet will just lay out in pretty good detail the business transaction, and then we'll have to come back for approval of final documents and stuff like that probably at the end of this calendar year. But the critical path for us is to get a term sheet started, and that term sheet should trigger the beginning of the design process, which the design process can then run parallel to the finalization of documents, which is our goal, to kind of have those things happening at once as opposed to linear, where you wait till the end of the year to finalize documents and then head into design. We'd like to get them to a point of getting a lot of design work done this calendar year. So we're negotiating that term sheet. Actually going to spend tomorrow afternoon with the Uniland team. And I think when we come back on the Hamister item in probably April for sure, I can report back about how we're doing, but I expect that the conversations between the groups here will certainly increase. Uniland's involved in a number of large regional projects, but we've got to the point now with enough work that we can really accelerate, I think, the negotiation.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
I hope that as part of the Wonderfalls project that there could be some sort of public engagement beyond the requirements of the environmental impact statement. I think it would really help the people of the city to feel a part of that project.
That's interesting, Monica, and I'd like to think about that, because as you were saying that, the beginning of this process had that, right? I mean,
Right.
What has happened at Rainbow Center has grown out of an Urban Land Institute process, which you're very familiar with, but which had 10 experts from around the country. We had, mayors, 75, 100 different stakeholders throughout the region participate. So when Paul and our team spent a lot of time putting together a very thorough RFP, that RFP was a collection of really the community's thoughts. So I think the program that Uniland responded with reflected back to us a lot of what the community wanted, but to somehow find a way to close that loop, right, would be a really unique process start to finish, and I think something that we should strongly endeavor to do, right?
I got the impression that Uniland's actually interested in that.
Yeah,
Some of the reps have
yes, they are. And
they really want to have a close relationship.
It's part of what we're talking about, but it would be, because a lot of the broad concepts of their proposal, what kind of differentiated them, and one of the ways it differentiated them was that they thought about all their programmatic approaches very authentically. How can we make this specific to this place, specific to this city, as opposed to kind of one size fits all approach. And I think that's because the input we had at the front end, but how do you, like I said, how do you close that at the end, and how do you have people feel like I participated in this start to finish, and that the development, even though it's a for-profit, entity, reflects to the best extent possible what we want to see in our community. I think would be a really good process, right? Yeah. So.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Paul. There's no further business. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Mr. Smith. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad you're all here, and thank you for participating, and happy Easter. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.